there's a line to come to Earth, to be human. I said, really? She said, yes. Because the universe knows that it's one of the hardest rides, but it's also got one of the greatest rewards. The process is for the advanced experience of getting back home to spirit and experiencing that. So I say, go for it. Like, go be human, go be you. Whatever that means, and listen, and then do that thing today, just in this moment, because that's all we got.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Being Inspired radio show. My name is Amanda Johnson, and I am your host, and I have the pure pleasure of having a woman on the show with me today who is absolutely an inspiration, a bright light, a woman who I have had the pleasure of only having one other conversation with, and yet in those 30 short minutes, I was uplifted, encouraged. I felt alive in my beingness. I was reflected back to me in terms of the power I have in the world, the ability I have to share my gifts, because she's a perfect mirror of that for me. And I absolutely know that you are in store for a treat today. So today I have with us Janet Farnsworth, internationally recognized yoga teacher and body empowerment coach, inspires students to break through old beliefs of shame and blame and instead connect to their bodies as the source of their greatest wisdom and joy. Founder of The Practice of Now, Let Love Move You, Janet has created a movement therapy practice designed to heal and nurture our relationships with our bodies. Janet believes authentic movement is the fastest way to physical, emotional, and spiritual health and well-being. Her book, Love Your Body, The Ultimate Guide to Stop Making Your Body a Battleground, is a how-to for anyone who is ready to feel empowered and at peace with their body. A personal survivor of the blame game, Janet currently enjoys the challenge of finding ways to wake up each morning and be glad to be in the body she actually has, particularly the stretch marks on her stomach and the cellulite on her thighs. When she is not trying to hug her almost adult children, Janet loves being on almost any boat, watching old movies, and eating buttered toast, either one at a time or all together. Welcome to the show, Janet.
Oh, thank you, Amanda. What a total joy to be here. And how nice to hear you say those nice things. It's when I hear that, it both makes me feel so good and also utterly terrified, because now that I know you had those good 30 minutes, I'm like, oh, please, let me try to do the same thing again now with you. But I'm so glad to have the opportunity to try. So thank you for letting me be with you today.
Oh, my pleasure. Yes. And I almost would invite you. There's no try. There's only do.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah. I guarantee we are in store for a wonderful ride of inspiration. And without knowing you, I know you, and I know that what you stand for in this world. If anyone who stands for love gets a mark in my book, if you will, because, that really is all we have to stand for. And the fact that you've taken this idea of standing for love and how to integrate that and merge that into loving one's body, yours first, and how doing that inspires us to love ours. That is such it's just such a juicy topic already. And we haven't even dove in yet. So hold on to your hats, ladies and gentlemen. We're in for a ride. So Janet, and for those listening, you may be familiar with how I do this show by now, or maybe not, but I love opening up these conversations by asking a simple but not always easy question. And the question for me is an opportunity to see what is being asked to come through us today in this conversation. It is the Being Inspired radio show. And why I call it that is because for me, it's important that we are in spirit. We are allowing spirit to flow through us. So there's nothing pre-planned or thought out. So the question I ask of Janet is also not pre-planned for her. So the question, Janet, is why do you do what you do?
Well, it could be a very short show because the thing that just moves through me is love. And, the word that I use for that, which I know that has a lot of meaning for some people, good and bad, is God. And whatever that thing is, that's the only true thing. That's why I do what I do. Yeah. I'm afraid that's a short answer. I could expand on it.
Well, thank you everyone for tuning in today.
Isn't that it? That's the whole thing. That's it. And then, the reason that I do what I do is because getting connected to that thing is the challenge. Doing what we do from a place of clarity is the challenge, right? I mean, I love that you start your show and that it's called Inspired and in Spirit, because that's all that we really want. And, in my language, to be inspired, to be in spirit is to be in a state of joy and grace and peace and power. And that fierce knowing that everything is okay. And I know exactly the way forward and how to be in this moment. Right? I mean, that's just some of what it means to be inspired. And in our humanity, I think pretty much from our first breath, when we get to come into these beautifully dense, complicated, complex, genius bodies, we have the experience of separation from spirit, right? I mean, I've always been fascinated. In fact, I'm thinking my next book might be on this, about very specifically about what love is and about our experience of love with others, and how when literally our humanity begins in a place of separation. Our first breath, which is what keeps us alive, literally happens when we exit the home, right? And so from the moment of being human, we're longing to come back into that one, right? And I don't know about you, but goodness knows I've been trying to figure it out my whole life, how to get back in there, right? How to get back home. And so why do I do what I do? Is because love teaches me that I'm here to teach about how to get back to it. And the way that we get back to it in my language is by being in our bodies.
Yeah, that's gorgeous. Wow, so much brilliance and insight already shared in the first few minutes. So wow, are we?
Oh, good God! Was that 4 minutes out of the 30? Okay,
that's 4 out of the 30. You are knocking it out of the park.
Okay,
Here we go. Every word that came out of those lips, Janet, just such truth, such wisdom, resonates with me deeply. That this life, breath, is also the first moment of, in a way, our death, of our separation. What a beautiful paradox. And then as you circled it back to, and how do we get back home? How do we find that oneness? And in your language and in your experience, and that's to me what's so divine about why each of us do what we do, is because we all come at it from, we're all in a sense moving in the same direction. If you were to ask me, I'd say, well, that's what we're all here for. We're all reclaiming that oneness. Whether or not we use that language, we're healing our separation, whether or not we use that language. And yet we're all going to do it slightly differently because of where we came from and how this, our human form, experienced life in those first, few years. And then, and so for you, it's coming back into the body. Why?
Yeah.
I'm so fascinated because I have my own reasons why that would be important for me, but they'd be very different. So why the body? Why has that become such a place of loving and place of tension and place of, battlefield?
Yeah. Oh, I love the question. And I can answer it in two different ways. And the first is more theoretical. And that is that very simply, the soul, the spirit in body communicates through feeling. The soul does not have a telephone or text or the capacity to write a book and talk to you in words or thought even. The way that it communicates is with how you feel. And so that gut knowing of, the yes to the relationship, or the gut knowing, the heart knowing of, I found my genius, or I'm feeling at peace, that speaks in the language of sense and sensation. And of course, there are these different languages of feeling, right? There's the feeling of literally taste, touch, smell. And then there's the feeling that we use of the heart, right? Emotion. And I love that it's the same word. I think that's brilliant. It's one of the few things I think the English language got really well. did good.
Yeah.
The other reason, and to me the juicier one, the more practical reason about why I think that the body is the language and the way home, is because of my personal experience. And it's funny, just today I was teaching a class about satya. And satya is a Sanskrit word for truth. And of course, if you look at the roots of that word, sat, it's so beautiful again in the definition, it means infinite, spacious truth, right? The one, the love, the divine. And it's also the word for self. So we say this in the, the yoga tradition, Sat Nam, I am infinite spacious truth. And Satya is to connect to that, right? And so where am I going with this? Because I'm thinking about it, is that my practical experience of my finding truth, I know why I'm saying this, is because my truth is only my own. That's only how I'm actually going to connect to God and to love and to spirit, is to know myself. And it's such a beautiful word, again, capital S self, love, truth, infinite spaciousness, and the smaller S self, which is this gorgeous, delicious humanity, right? So what I tell you about what I quote know, that's why I'm taking this digression to say I only know what I know in my body and in my being. And I know what it is to be completely disconnected from my body. I know what it is at a very young age to have been assaulted and to have learned swiftly, clearly, powerfully, definitively, get the hell out. This is a place that hurts. And so I spent most of my life either completely abandoning it, stuffing it into oblivion, starving it, pretty much doing anything I could to not be connected to it. I had a lot of years of knowing what that is. Didn't mean I didn't have feelings about God or connection. In fact, I think I've been praying since I was 9, or that sense of, I know there's something more than this moment. But I do know what it is to have spent a lot of my life outside of the body. So I love that you said that we all have these different ways, right? Depending on our early childhood experience, right? What's our unique way in back home to the big truth, right? Well, in my little unique moment on this planet, in this earthly body, I experienced separation from it, from God, by being separated from my own being, my own body. And it was only when I started to move, and I can tell you stories about that, but literally when I started to move my body with an absence of thinking, with an absence of analysis and judgment, and I was lucky enough that that's what I happened to like to do. I think I danced around, this is going to date me, to Helen Reddy. I'm not sure if you know who she is, but she was a pop singer in like the 70s. And I used to dance around to her. So I've always liked to dance, But for a lot of different reasons about where I was in my life, the fact that I was safe for the first time, I was happily in a loving relationship, I had work that I loved. There were a lot of real necessary reasons that I was okay enough to then be able to dance again without ego, judgment, and fear. Mm. And when I did that, that's what opened the gateway. And I went, oh my God, I'm in my body. Whoa, what the heck is this? It's like, this is awesome. Like, wow, this is my hand. this is my elbow. And it started with a physical, practical connection to my biology. And what I discovered by connecting first to my biology, to like, whoa, my arm will move this way. My arm wants to move this way. I think I want to roll my hips this way. That I let that somatic physical truth start to do the living for me. I discovered that that physical truth was the gateway into my soul truth. And, and for better or worse, when I woke up in my body, I kind of woke up in my life. And there were a couple of years there of, I'm not living the life that I think that I'm here to live. I had to get out of that beautiful, loving relationship. And that's a long story. I changed my careers. I changed the way I dressed. I changed the way I eat and drink and sleep and live my life because I first connected to these beautiful bones that my being is draped over. The muscles over the bones, the breath that moves through you. The fact that I'm sitting here right now and I can feel a little bit of trembling under my skin because I'm excited to be talking about it. I'm a little nervous because, I'm on this show and is she going to like me and are they going to listen? But the more I get to know that and then be with that and then hang out with that, then I'm actually connected to infinite spacious truth, which is why my practice is called the practice of now. Like, let's just be here together in all of the rawness and the realness of who we are, which until we get out of our bodies, we all have, It's like, as long as you're sitting here and you're hearing these words and you and I get to see each other, this is the way into the moment. And then when we get to feel it, it's like, yeah. And I see that you have something to say with my eyeballs.
With
looking
her
at
eyeballs
you.
looking at me, she can see it and sense it and feel it. I thought I was doing really well waiting.
No,
and then I couldn't
beautifully.
Hardly stand those last seconds. It was so cool as you kept saying, so much good stuff. And I want to go back to something that is being so clearly recognized in my life based on the conversations I'm having, my own experiences. Of course, how universe and spirit is guiding me right now is that, and I want to share this with the listeners, that I believe many of us, I know myself included, thought, and it's not that this isn't also true, but at one point I thought, the purpose here, and you started by saying it, Janet, that our purpose here is to come back home, which is that back to spirit, back to source. And I know for myself that looked like me connecting to these higher ideas, these realms outside of myself, this largeness, this vastness, and it's this spiritual, and I use that with quotes because I'm at a place where I think everything is spiritual. But if we want to use the word to understand what I'm thinking is physical versus spiritual, or material spiritual. So having this spiritual connection, I feel like that's part of the journey. And for me, that's where I started. I thought, I'm connected to this. I want to be more connected to this spirit. What's interesting then is on the journey of that, it reaches a point where I feel I'm at now, where it feels like you've also arrived at some point on your journey, which is, okay, I am spirit. That makes sense. That's where I actually started from. That's who I am at my core essence. Now the journey becomes coming back into this physical, into the material. And it's almost this like boomerang or this slingshot, like a rubber band effect. And that's how I'm experiencing in my life right now, which it's the coming back into the physical. And and whether or not maybe another person's journey, maybe they start in the physical, they have to go to the spiritual. I'm not sure. But for me, it was like I started in the spiritual and I had to come into the physical, right? And I'm loving your shares about this because this is our body. This is the vehicle we have. So there's a couple things. At the end, you were talking about this, the power of the practice of now, the power of now, or being now in this moment, because that's where we access our body and all that's happening. And then you also mentioned that you have all these stories that you share around moving your body, and that being maybe part of how you started the reconnection to this physical form.
Yes.
So I'm going to open that up to say, do you want to go ahead and start sharing some of those stories, if there's one that comes to mind? And then, of course, I imagine that does relate to being now, because when we move and we're aware of our movement, that really does bring us into this present moment, doesn't it?
Oh boy, Amanda, you just about 19 different things went through my mind. Yeah, I will say this, because this actually is in my book, which has in it it's a series to be able to bring you into movement. But I say very explicitly that movement does not mean necessarily action. That it doesn't mean that you have to be, quote, dancing. That what it means is that you're connecting to yourself. And that at any moment, as we breathe, and we know this, moments are passing, right? When I was little, I used to play this game, and I'm sure many of us do, of, oh, now it's now. Oh, now it's now. Oh, now it's now. Oh, there it went. Can't do that again. Whatever. You kind of like start to conceptualize. And which is this playing with, all I really have is right now, right? But when you do the mindfulness, when we do the meditation, when we do that pausing and presence, what we recognize, and I do have beautiful stories about working in jail, which is really pretty much one of the most difficult places just to be able to be in the moment, but to practice this breathing breath to breath and recognizing that the moments are dynamic. And so that's where I want to go, is that life as we experience it moves on its own. And so when we do this deep practice of being in the moment, we're in movement, right? Which is kind of glorious, right? For the hard times, really nice to know that they're not fixed. It's like, whew. And in fact, as it was taught to me by my mentor so beautifully, as she put it, every moment that you allow, every feeling that you allow into your consciousness and into your awareness, that you breathe not to be it, but to let it flow through you, like you are sort of holding the moment, to love the moment, to make space for the moment. That when you allow that presence with it, is one moment that you digest and so never need to hold again, which is so powerful for those of us who have been traumatized or have hard experiences. That this practice says that when you hold your arms big enough, when you settle back enough, and you get settled into the bones, and you recognize that breath to breath, you can make space to let that move through you. You'll never have to experience that again. That in fact, the overload comes when we're not feeling, right? When we don't actually let that pass through us. But we only get to let it pass through us when we're present with us. Yeah, when we bring our consciousness and our awareness into it. So that's a very long way to say that your movement does not need to be jumping or even, quote, physical. Ultimately, the practice of now is to let love you move through you. Mm. Now, the practice that I teach, that is the alive one for me, and as you so beautifully began our talk, which is to know that we all have different ways in. For some of us, it might be painting love. It may be speaking, writing, cooking it. We have different ways to express spirit, to connect to it. But the practice of now, as my practice, I mean, we're all in the practice of now, but the business of now, the love your body practice, as it came through me personally, was as a survivor of assault who had been taught in no uncertain terms about what I was supposed to be and look like as a woman. I was supposed to be skinny. I was supposed to be blonde and smile all the time and nod my head yes. And forgive me, and this is going to be a little bit coarse, but it does represent a reality that was true for me. It was a real thing. It was to be skinny and blonde and to smile yes, and to keep my legs open for whoever wanted them to be. And I mean that metaphorically, really, right? As well as literally. So I had a lot of lessons about how I was supposed to hold my body in a contraction, in a lie. It was a lie that was imposed on me that I accepted because I needed to stay alive and to feel loved, right? Which is that's the second book. So for me, my youngest child was in kindergarten, and suddenly for the first time in my life, I had free time where I didn't have to be either surviving or working or taking care of children. And I was like, well, what do I do with my time? And I knew I loved to dance. And so I joined the local community theater and I did a production of Cabaret. I don't think my character had a name. I think I was like Chorus Girl 5 or something. I think maybe, the director in all of his kindness tried to have some rehearsal of what's your backstory? I don't remember what mine was, but I got to dance around, listen to music. And there was something about dancing to music in a character that actually started to unhook me from the shoulds, that unhooked me from that I have to move this way, I have to be that way. Ironically, that was my first way in, is show me the steps. And I think a lot of us actually really can rest in being told how to move and then can enjoy it. For some of us, it's very anxiety provoking. Don't tell me steps. That's more where I am in my life now. That's what's going to make me kooky. Don't tell me how to do it, because then I'll stress out on getting it wrong or whatever. But at that time, there was something very soothing about, okay, so do this, and now I'm going to do that, and now, okay, and now the music playing, and now, all right, now step forward, back. And it started to allow the undoing of the have-tos that had already been fixed in my body, right? And because of that, I started to take a dance class. And because of that dance class, I started to do something called contact improv, which is much more improvisational movement, which is about connecting to the spine and about connecting to the body as an engine, a technology, so that you can now interact with someone improvisationally. So I'm connecting into my bones in a very practical manner. There's a lot to say about that particular modality, whatever, but just that was my personal progression. And because of that, I found this thing called ecstatic dance. So I was like, ooh, that sounds cool. The barefoot boogie. Okay, I'll do that. And it was in that place when for the first time in my life, I heard the music. And then the music said, okay, head, you don't got to do any work. I can rest in these notes. I can rest in the rhythm. And I can now let the body answer the sound. I can let my body and the drum and the song talk to each other without my damned head in the way, without the stories, without the blame, without the shame, without the fear. I can now say, oh, hello, truth. I can say, hello, love. This is what wants to be in this moment. And it was in doing that I woke up. And I went, oh my God, whoa. Hello, God. Hello, love. Hello, me.
Mm.
I'll just say one last thing about music specifically. There's a lot to say, as I say, that, movement doesn't happen to happen physically, right? The same way that stillness doesn't mean stopping. So too do I describe very specifically about how silence doesn't mean emptiness, right? And so that sometimes this movement can happen with your heartbeat, with your breath, with just the rhythm of that river moving through you, which is a beautiful practice. But I do want to give a little shout out to music, which is, I recently, I was laughing with a friend. I said, I realize why I'm always falling in love with musicians. And that, it's because the music, you music makers are building the bridge for me back to God. You're building the bridge for me back home, to let go of the mind. And for a couple of years, I had a great opportunity to practice with a woman. We had something called X Tribe, ecstatic dance, ecstatic. I can't remember. It was Lainey Goodman, and she was a drummer. And she did drum circles, and we would very specifically invite that sweet union of, literally, she would play djembe, which is the African drum made out of wood and skin. Mama's bones, the earth's bones, covered by the earth's skin, and that beat would be that direct vibrational bridge into the bones and the skin of our own being, in that harmony, which is the one. So yeah, right. I'm not sure exactly what I'm talking about right now.
That's okay.
But I'm talking about, I'm just talking from my heart.
You know what? You are talking love right now, and it's literally poetic and truth filled. And wow, the way you spoke about music was maybe one of my favorite things I've heard said in a very long time. What a testament. Oh, wow. I even had a musician on the show, East Forest. And I mean, he spoke about music eloquently. And I think you may have, I hope he's not listening now, may have just done him one up. But anyhow, so I want to acknowledge, Janet, there, so much that you said was so profound. And this is often when I listen to people who have such wisdom to share. And we also know that the journey isn't at times easy, or at times we do face our challenges and our resistances. And I put myself in the mindset or the place of perhaps someone out there listening right now who hasn't been yet to an ecstatic dance party, or hasn't quite yet learned how to get back into that space of love. And in some, this is also going to go back to something you said earlier in the show, where you vulnerably, you didn't go into all the details, but you vulnerably said and expressed that once you woke up and you found yourself again, it actually did require many shifts and changes to take place then in your external world. Sounds, a divorce, a change of job, all these things. And I personally feel, for many individuals out there, that there's a reason why we resist these because we're afraid. We're afraid. I mean, and so I can imagine that someone out there might be going, well, it sounds great, but I don't want to uproot my life right now, or leave my beloved, whatever story or fear is right now. So as a way to speak to that part of all of us, I mean, we all have that. And to those specifically who might be thinking this right now, I'm curious what you might say to that. And then also to bring it back to something that was said more recently about, being in the body and allowing it to move. And you understood that having steps helped you with that. Now ecstatic, meaning there are no steps, you just listen to the music and allow your body to move. For someone who hasn't had that experience yet, and for them maybe have a lot of judgment and shame and gosh, I don't know how to dance, or I would look foolish, or and they're in that. What do you offer to open them up to this possibility?
That's a wonderful question, and like you said earlier, there's so many different pieces in that, so many things to respond to. I have to tell you, honestly, my very first reaction when you first started speaking was, well, I have a course that takes 8 weeks and a book, or you just read my book.
There you go.
Because the book is all about that. It's about learning how to love your body, and being with the shame, being with the blame, and starting exactly where you are. That not having stories about, one, that you're supposed to be dancing like Beyonce, or be anything other than who you are. And if who you are right now is feeling like you feel uncomfortable and embarrassed, then welcome discomfort and embarrassment. I mean, as a practice, like let's just start where you are. And that's one piece. And something else that you said, which was, it's been an interesting ride and a journey for me these last months as my business is evolving again to really cultivate like this mission that I'm personally on for you to love your body is to recognize. So what I'm about to say, I want to say that we are all here to be in our own truths. We are all the absolute agents of our own experience internally. That does not mean, and remember, I have taught people in jail, it does not mean diddly about what is outside of us. Sometimes there are external circumstances that are absolutely agonizing. That's a reality. And anyone who says that it's an illusion, I'd like to have a conversation with them. What we can have a relationship with and be dynamic with is the experience that we're having inside. And so to the person who says, well, God, that sounds great, ecstatic dance, not me, I would say, okay. I'd say, all right, you don't need to do ecstatic dance, but how are you doing today? Is there something that you're uncomfortable with? How's it working for you? Can you take the pause and care enough to be interested in actually just how you're doing? And it may not be that today is the day to start dancing around the house. Hell, it may never be the day to dance around the house. And how do you want to be in your house? How do you want to be? And that thing of I know what I know. You get to know what you know. Are you listening? Listen, because there's like this universe. There's a symphony of information inside of you. That's what's going to guide you back home. Whether or not it's to read my book or to go to whatever, to go make the stew now, and whatever it is, you get to know you. And that to me is the most ecstatic, magnificent, radiant juiciness of our humanity. My mentor once said to me, it was one of the weirder things she said. Well, no, she said a lot of weird things, but she said, Janet, she said, there's many, many galaxies and many, many universes. I said, okay. Said, and lots of different ways for spirit to carnate and to experience evolution. I went, okay. And she said, there's this, and I literally had this picture in the cosmos. She said, there's a line to come to Earth, to be human. I said, really? She said, yes. Because the universe knows that it's one of the hardest rides, but it's also got one of the greatest rewards. The process is for the advanced experience of getting back home to spirit and experiencing that. So I say, go for it. Like, go be human, go be you. Whatever that means, and listen, and then do that thing today, just in this moment, because that's all we got.
Ladies and gentlemen, Janet Farnsworth. Conduit for the divine. Wow. Holy smokes, sister. That was... I can't wait for you to go back and listen to what you just said. That was phenomenal. And all those listening, rewind. Again, like really sink in. Oh my God, that was that. And here's what I love. That's like the perfect way to bring this to completion.
Yeah. Oh, I feel so nice. Doesn't it feel good when we like get into these spaces? I feel like I just like, I don't know, I'm like I'm on a boat eating toast.
Yeah. With a lot of butter on it.
With a lot of butter.
Wait, the boat has butter or the toast has butter? Maybe both.
No, well, hey, you know what? If it's good Irish butter, the boat can have it too.
But before we let you go, because I'm not quite ready to do that yet. I mean, I could like, I just want to keep having like tea and toast with you. But we're going to have 3 more questions, and then we're going to make sure that the audience knows exactly where to find you, your book, the course, all of the things that they can learn from you, and continue to expand themselves and to expand and deepen themselves more and more. So, my first question that I ask each of my guests: who is a source of inspiration for you and why?
This is going to sound really cheesy, but I have to say you right now. I have to say Amanda Johnson of Inspired Radio. Because you are the beautiful soul with whom I am interacting, and I can completely feel in my heart space that you are connected in your heart space. And so what more do I want? That's probably the most honest, genuine response. And then I can throw in a little bit of the mind and say, because I also know what you do for a living. I know, and I have seen you continuing to live your life in integrity, which is my word also for being in spirit. And so, yeah, you.
Well, thank you. I really receive those words. Wow. My gift. Okay. Next question.
Yes, dear.
What place or activity most inspires you right now?
Ooh, what place or activity?
Yeah.
Wow. Place is any place on the earth with the sky above me and the air on my skin. Anything that's of Mother Earth, that inspires me. I'd like to be able to go to the exotic places. I am going to Thailand. That's inspiring. So there are mountains and all the beautiful places on this planet, but being on the earth. And an activity, I'd like to say something really elevated and, and really mystical. But I think the most honest response for me right now is teaching. There's a sweet circular relationship between teacher and student where the things that come out of my mouth when I teach, I teach yoga as a practice and I'm doing my course and even here with you, when we're connecting or when I'm connecting into my heart to try really hard to be in integrity with you, I get that loop back, where I'm like, okay, because I'm keeping that awareness of, and again, I apologize. I'm from New York. I like to swear.
By all means, it's okay.
I'm like, okay. So it's like I'm always really wanting to watch my own bullshit meter because I care so much about teaching and integrity. So I think that actually inspires me because it keeps me honest, Yeah. So that's an interesting question. It's kind of humbling, weirdly, to realize that. So thank you for asking it.
Your answers have humbled both of us today. That's wonderful. And our third question, a favorite book that has inspired you?
That easy, girlfriend. That one is so easy pants. I can't even tell you how easy that is. I have 3 copies. 2 are in my car right now. One is actually not next to me, but it's close enough. And it is a book called The Radiance Sutras, which has been translated by Lauren Roche. And these are the teachings that have been around for hundreds, if not thousands of years that are meant to be between the masculine and feminine energies of the universe in conversation. And they are the most delicious, oh my goodness, poetic language teachings of spirit in body, of the divine in your beautiful humanity. They inspire me all the time. Yeah.
Wow. That I'm inspired just by the title and your description.
Yeah, just go grab a copy
I'm
today.
going to go grab a copy.
I
was going to say, or just send me the one that you have in your car right now. It's fine.
I do. I have 30 copies for classes, but I'll send one to you.
Oh my goodness. Wow, Janet. Okay. I could talk to you for hours. Maybe one day I will have the pleasure of doing that in your physical presence.
That would be nice.
For those listening, and I trust you are feeling as much warmth and love for this woman as I am right now, please go find her in whatever way feels right, whether or not that's getting a copy of her book, Love Your Body, or go to her website. That's also where you'll find her book. A couple places you can check out, thepracticeofnow.com or her name, janetfarnsworth.com. Go explore what she has to offer. Find her book, read her book, contact her if you want to learn more or be with her in some capacity. And again, she has a retreat. She has classes, so many things she's offering. A class, a 8-week, correct? 8-week class?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So many ways you can continue to learn from this woman, be inspired by this woman, and in so doing, deepen into your own body and reconnect with yourself. Return home as you will. Janet, this has been such a delight, and I am humbled and honored to sharing this space with you.
Amanda, the feeling is mutual. What a joy to be able to speak with you and to speak with whomever is listening. And we're all just in that flow, figuring it out together. And thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to share what inspires me. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Love your program, love you. What a gift.
Thank you. And if those listening feel the same as Janet, then I will invite you, subscribe to the show. You'll be notified of these incredible conversations I have the privilege of hosting. And of course, like it, share it, review it if you feel so inspired. And then be in touch and go out, share your truth as only you can share it. And until then, many, many blessings.